So here we have a market with a supply curve that runs like so. The y-intercept of this supply curve hits the origin in this case, although it doesn't have to in all cases. It could be at some point higher on the y-axis. And we're going to look at producer surplus in this area when we've got a $600 price and 120 units that would be offered at that price. So producer surplus is going to be all of this area that is below the price line and above the supply curve to the right of the y-axis. Call that area PS for producer surplus. Now you can calculate the area of that triangle and that will give you the total producer surplus in the market given that price. The way you do that is by looking at the dimensions of this triangle. So the length of this triangle is just going to be the quantity of units that are supplied at that price, right? Which we know is 120 units in this case. All right, what about the height of this triangle? Well, it's just going to be the distance between the price at which you sell and the y-intercept of the supply curve, which in this case is price of 0. But in general, this distance will be the price, P, minus the y-intercept of the supply curve, which I'm going to call y with an S subscript. And so now we can put together the producer surplus formula. Producer surplus is going to be 1/2 of the base times height. So the height of this triangle is price minus the y-intercept. The length of this triangle is going to be the quantity supplied at that price. And then we divide by 2 because we're calculating the area of a triangle. So let's just plug in the numbers that we find here to calculate the actual producer surplus in this market. The price that we're given is $600. The y-intercept of this particular supply curve is 0. Now, if this supply curve hit the y-axis at $100 or $200, that's what we would be plugging in there. But it goes through the origin, so we're subtracting 0 from the price. Quantity of units supplied, we've got 120 units supplied at that price. And we divide by 2. 600 minus 0 is 600. Multiply 600 by 120, and you get 72,000. So when we divide that by 2, we find that our producer surplus is equal to $36,000. Okay, so very straightforward and pretty much exactly the same way, or at least, symmetrical to the way that you would calculate consumer surplus. Remember, consumer surplus, if I had a demand curve that was going through like this, suppose that this is the demand curve in this market, the consumer surplus would be everything above this price and below the demand curve. And the producer surplus is everything below the price and above the supply curve. So this large triangle here would tell us what are the total gains from trade. In the next video, we're going to talk about shifts in the supply curve. What does it look like when supply increases? What does it look like when supply decreases? And so on.